June 6, 1944. The pre-dawn skies over the Cotentin Peninsula and Normandy hung heavy with mist in the faint tang of the English Channel. In the cockpit of a lone Focke-Wulf 190, a German pilot scanned the horizon, the engine's steady throb the only familiar sound amid the quiet alert. Then, from the west, a distant thunder swelled, not sporadic raids, but a relentless, swelling roar of hundreds upon hundreds of aircraft engines, filling the night like an unstoppable tide. This was the opening act of Operation Overlord, the Allied invasion of Western Europe. In the early hours of June 6th, more than 13,100 American paratroopers from the elite 82nd and 101st Airborne Divisions boarded over 1,000 Douglas C-47 Skytrain transports in England. Pathfinders had gone first, equipped with Rebecca Eureka radar beacons to mark drop zones near St. Mary's-Église, Carrington, and key causeways across flooded fields. Their mission? Seize bridges, block German reinforcements from the Cotentin, and sow chaos behind the Atlantic Wall ahead of the seaborne landings on Utah and Omaha beaches. The airborne phase represented a bold gamble, night drops into contested territory, relying on coordination, surprise, and individual initiative to secure the invasion's flanks. German high command had anticipated airborne threats, but Luftwaffe reconnaissance was crippled. Air Fleet 3 possessed fewer than 320 serviceable aircraft against nearly 13,000 Allied planes. Fuel shortages and relentless Allied fighter sweeps had grounded most fighters. Reconnaissance flights were nearly impossible. Those few pilots who scrambled or remained on alert heard the roar of thousands of engines overhead and glimpsed what followed. Serial after serial of C-47s crossing the coast, their formations vast and disciplined despite flak and cloud banks that scattered many loads. Paratroopers leaped into the darkness, static lines snapping taut, bodies tumbling before canopies deployed. What German pilots and ground observers expected stood in stark contrast to the reality unfolding below. Fallschirmjäger operations like Crete in 1941 had shown elite but resource-strapped airborne troops fighting with limited resupply, often relying on captured equipment and rigid command structures. American paratroopers, they assumed, would arrive disorganized, lightly armed, vulnerable to rapid counterattacks by veteran Wehrmacht units accustomed to superior doctrine and maneuver. Instead, the descending troops carried precision gear that enabled sustained aggressive small unit actions, even when scattered across miles of bocage, hedgerows, and flooded meadows. Each man bore 60 to 100 pounds of equipment, the semi-automatic M1 Garand rifle with 8-round N-block clips for rapid-fire superiority, M1A1 carbines, Thompson submachine guns, bazookas, gammon grenades, demolitions, medical kits, and crucially, SCR-300 backpack radios for calling artillery support or coordinating isolated groups. Pathfinders used crickets, simple clickers for silent friend or foe identification in the dark, and lightweight nylon or silk parachutes designed for stability under heavy loads. Reports from German commanders described these troops as unpredictable and ferociously aggressive, employing decentralized leadership that defied expectations of linear advances. Small bands fought tenaciously, using initiative to seize objectives piecemeal rather than awaiting centralized orders. One early casualty underscored the shock. General Wilhelm Falley of the 91st Air Landing Infantry Division, alerted by the thunderous roar of aircraft engines overhead, raced back to his headquarters near Bernaville only to encounter gunfire from 82nd Airborne paratroopers. He became the first German general killed in Normandy. Nearby, elements of the 21st Panzer Division engaged in sharp nighttime skirmishes with dropping troops, while commanders like Major Hans von Luck urgently requested permission to counterattack paratrooper concentrations, but were delayed by higher headquarters awaiting clarity. The sky offered no relief. Allied Jabos, fighter bombers, dominated, strafing any movement. Reconnaissance pilots who ventured out reported bewildering scenes of secured positions and relentless inland advances, but Luftwaffe sorties remained minimal, 1 for every 37 Allied flights. As wave after wave descended, the German pilots witnessed a transformation in perception. What began as expected disruption evolved into a visceral demonstration of overwhelming industrial and ideological power. The scattered drops, far from weakening the assault, amplified its terror through relentless small-unit harassment. American paratroopers regrouped swiftly, using radios and personal resolve to press objectives despite heavy casualties, over 2,400 on D-Day alone for the airborne divisions. This shifted German views from confidence in their defensive preparations to dawning recognition of an adversary backed by vast resources and a fighting spirit rooted in democratic ideals, citizen soldiers trained for initiative rather than blind obedience. The abundance of equipment, endless ammunition, specialized tools, and replacement weapons highlighted disparities that scarcity-bound German forces could not match. Recurring across the darkened sky was the image of silk canopies billowing open in silent, ghostly profusion, thousands upon thousands unfurling like pale blossoms against the night, each one a symbol of American abundance. Produced in enormous quantities by the free industrial might of the United States, these parachutes embodied democratic production on an unimaginable scale. Factories running at full capacity, materials allocated without the bottlenecks of authoritarian rationing, enabling not just one elite drop, but repeated, massive airborne operations. The silk canopies caught the moonlight as pilots banked futilely, representing the wealth and logistical depth that turned scattered soldiers into a persistent, multiplying threat. This experience altered more than tactics, it chipped at ideology. German pilots and commanders glimpsed a force fighting not merely for territory, but sustained by a system that rewarded ingenuity and supplied its warriors lavishly. The precision gear, radios crackling with fire support calls, Garens delivering sustained fire, amplified the terror, turning expected easy containment into a night of fragmented, exhausting defense. In the end, the billowing silk canopies over Normandy revealed a larger truth about freedom and abundance. Where tyranny bred scarcity and rigid control, democracy forged overwhelming plenty, not just in materiel, but in the liberated will of men who fought with both tools and autonomy. That night, as the canopies settled across the fields of France, the seeds of liberation took root, proving that the open skies of free societies could deliver not only soldiers, but an unstoppable tide of resolve, dooming the shadows of oppression to fade beneath the dawn of a new order.